Harry said, if you're looking for someone to write your breakup songs about, baby, I'm perfect. And Taylor said, okay. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Ali, and today I will be breaking down for you the vault songs on 1989. Firstly, thank you so much for all of the love and kindness on my 1989 reaction video. It was just so sweet. I know I say this a lot, but I just feel so lucky to have such a kind community. I know the internet can be not the nicest space, and so I really know how lucky I am to have just like really wholesome, nice, kind people that created such a welcoming and warm space. So thank you. That goes out to all of you. I really appreciate you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being here in such a kind way. My next video is probably going to be a new like unpopular opinions video. So if you'd like to be involved in that and have me react to yours as well, make sure you're following me on Instagram. I have so much fun making those, and I have a lot to say this time. But today we are focusing on these vault tracks. I'm so excited to dive into these with you guys. I know obviously a lot of the stuff that I talked about in my part 1 and part 2 breakdowns of this album ended up being a lot more relevant than I think any of us expected it would be. There are definitely a few gaps to fill in now, and I thought I would just offer my services. Now, we are also seeing a lot of Harry Styles hate post hearing these vault tracks now, and I've got to say I don't really understand that. While these vaults are filled with tea and juice and interesting stories, they haven't really told us anything that new in terms of like reasons to hate him, and I will go into that. I'll go into sort of the connections and the things we already knew. It's so important to remember that these songs were written literally almost a decade ago. It happened so long ago. If we're gonna find reasons to be angry at Harry, let it be the fact that he played Stockholm Syndrome and Medicine at shows that weren't mine. I think that's a valid reason to hate someone, but not these songs. By the way, I'm putting this fun fact at the beginning of the video just in case people don't watch all the way to the end. I think everyone needs to know this. Obviously, we have the iconic lyric, let's fast forward to 300 takeout coffees later, or 300 blind dates later. 1989 Taylor's version came out October 27th. Guess how many days into the year that is? Exactly 300. She's done it again, folks. Just like when Taylor released Midnights on her 12,000th day of being alive, this is up there with the most insane things she's ever done. It feels weird to say this because obviously this was maybe the vault that we were all really anticipating the most and like thought would be so incredible, and yet it somehow surpassed my wildest dreams and my expectations. I cannot get over how good this vault is. I have never loved a vault so immediately, probably besides the exception of the red vault. I mean, all 10 well, but also like you guys saw how quickly I fell in love with the very first night and Message in a Bottle. We were built to fall apart. We broke the status quo. We were built to fall apart and get back together. This song is literally Out of the Woods 2.0. Yeah, these vaults just hit. Now, as much as I think these are incredible songs that, you know, I agree with Taylor when she said these are some of the best and can't believe they got left behind, I actually can see why they were, and I think she made the right choice. To me, it makes a lot of sense that she didn't put these on the original standard or deluxe album, because not only was 1989, take a shot for every time you've heard this, sonically cohesive, but it was also very emotionally cohesive. I feel like the overarching theme was very much, yeah, I went through a relationship or a breakup, but it's fine. I'm dancing with my girls. I'm out in New York having the time of my life. It's all good. And these vaults paint a very different picture. These vault songs tell us that she was maybe a little bit more hurt than she originally let on. I think since Red had been the breakup album, she was ready to kind of stray from that and create a new musical narrative for herself. So unfortunately, these songs suffered that loss. I think it was a very deliberate and honestly good choice to make 1989 more emotionally upbeat and hopeful. Even songs like Clean, which, you know, are devastating, it still has a message of her overcoming something, her being strong enough to get through this. And I mean, this album has like the least track 5 of all time. So I can see why she made those choices, and I do think ultimately keeping the album so, I guess, like lyrically vague and emotionally upbeat is partially what led to so much of its success, and a big part of what led to the success of her rebrand. I think a big part of the reason she was able to rewrite the media narrative that had been written about her from, you know, the Speak Now and Red eras is that she really did change her songwriting for this album. She'd become known as like the girl that writes depressing heartbreak songs and puts really specific lyrics in. And so for this album, specifically for the songs that she chose for the original version, I think she really pivoted away from that by keeping these vault tracks that had kind of more scathing lyrics on them off the original 13 track run. I think that really aided in the public's new perception of Taylor. And we'll talk a lot more about that in a moment. I also had a very important realization this weekend. So my predictions video for the 1989 vault, I rewatched it and I realized there were an alarming amount of things that absolutely correctly predicted, and people have said like, how are you able to do that? And my realization was that yes, a lot of that is because Taylor Swift literally raised me since I was a child, and so therefore I'm gonna know some of her patterns and like things that she may or may not do. I ultimately think it comes down to the fact that I religiously watched Pretty Little Liars and had a Pretty Little Liars predictions blog on Tumblr. That is the most 2010s thing I've ever said. So some of it is Taylor Swift's fault, but a lot of the blame also goes to Marlene King. She's also done a lot of damage to my brain. So before I dive into breaking down these 5 songs for you guys, I want to make note of something very deliberate that I think Taylor did. The track list for 1989 essentially tells the story of one relationship from beginning to end. Taylor herself liked posts that said this, and we can see that from the secret messages as they tell our one cohesive story. Now, interestingly, she has also done this for us with the Vault songs. Now, I don't necessarily believe that they were written in this order or even experienced in this order per se, but the way that they are ordered on the album now, chronologically, it just works. So for example, first up we have Slut. This tells the story of falling in love. Then we have Say Don't Go, when you are wanting them to be as in love as you are. Now That We Don't Talk is the post-breakup stage, dealing with that, reflecting on that. Suburban Legends, she's then reflecting on what the relationship might have been, could have been, kind of like style. And then we have one of the greatest songs of all time. I'm so excited to talk about it. Is It Over Now? And you're wondering, is it finally all finished, all over? And it's very interesting that she ends this group of tracks, this run of songs, with a question. Is it over now? Question mark. It's open-ended. It's not we are over now or it's over now. It's is it over now? And that ties into so many themes of, the original album, but also songs like Question. Perhaps the question wasn't, are we out of the woods yet? But rather, is it over now? Okay, let's dive into breaking down these Vault songs. Also, can I just say how glad I am and how grateful I am that we made the 1989 album and era breakdown videos, because there were things mentioned in that I kind of just wanted to teach for new fans, things they might not have known at the time, might have been too young, might have missed, just providing some context. I did not think that so much of that would become relevant, so I'm just so glad that we did that and that so many of you got to watch that. To me, that really added to the album's experience, and so I hope that it positively helped you guys as well. I'm just glad that so many of you did your homework, because there was a test and you all passed. But today we are diving into new assignments, and that is just my personal interpretations of the Vault. So first up we have Slut.
The song Slut is a song we wrote for 1989, and in it I kind of sort of cheekily play on the discussions at that time in my life around my dating life. And that's not the only time on 1989 that I've done that. I did that on Blank Space. And I think when I came down to having to pick songs for the album, I think I thought, okay, well, I'm going to choose Blank Space. And unfortunately, I had to make some tough decisions in terms of what to put on the track list. But I love this song because I think it's really dreamy and really, I don't know, I always saw 1989 as a New York album, but this song to me was always California. And maybe that was another reason it didn't make the cut, because sometimes thematically I just have these weird little rules in my head. But I'm so happy it's finally going to be something that you guys hear, because I have always been proud of it. I've always wanted it to come out into the world, and now it is. So yay.
As most of us expected, this did have a slight commentary on, the way the public was perceiving her and talking about her, but with a slight twist. It was actually a sad love song. I don't know if anyone saw that coming. We definitely predicted that it could have been a slower song, but for it to have been about how in love she was, that's just the greatest plot twist of all time. So let's go through some of these lyrics. Even before the lyrics come in, that intro just reminds me so much of an 80s after school special program. It's so celestial. Sunrise Boulevard. Now, she uses alcohol as a metaphor for love a couple of times on this album, and definitely a lot on Reputation. But here, I think the clink clink really represents the beginning of their love, the beginning of the relationship. You clink your glasses together before you drink them. So to me, that represents the very first night. Got love struck, went straight to my head. Got love sick all over my bed. Got love struck, went straight to my head. This is where we see her using alcohol as a metaphor for falling in love. She's saying it went straight to my head. Immediately, I took in way too much of it, way too much of this person, of loving them. She's comparing being in love with this person to just being so intoxicated. A little bit too intoxicated. Got love sick all over my bed. What a sexy lyric. But also, it means being in love with this person was too much. It's like having too much to drink. It just negatively impacted her. Love thorns all over this rose. Love thorns all over this rose is so interesting because it's like she's saying, even though this thing is beautiful, it's so dangerous. It's also kind of like a callback to Rose Garden filled with thorns. A very common theme on this album is Taylor acknowledging, even before they fall in love or do anything, that she knows it's dangerous. She knows it's gonna burn her. She can see the thorns, but she still wants the rose.
I can see the end as it begins. Nothing lasts forever. We were built to fall apart. I'm dying to see how this one ends. You can tell me when it's over. If the high was worth the pain. 'Cause I knew you were trouble when you walked in. I'd be smart to walk away, but you're quicksand.
I'll pay the price, you won't. I think for me that mostly sums up the song. She's acknowledging this relationship is going to negatively impact me in the press, my relationships, my reputation, but yours won't be tarnished. She's calling out the double standards. We see her reference this in basically all of The Man.
They'd say I played the field before I found someone to commit to. Every conquest I had made would make me more of a boss to you.
Men are allowed to date around, play the field, sleep with whomever they want, but for women, it's not a good look. It's not as becoming. It's not as respectful. It's not as classy.
If they call me a slut, you know it might be worth it for what?
I think that actually might be this song's thesis statement. I always try to pick out one line or one lyric from each song that kind of defines it the best, and I think for me, it's that. If they call me a slut, you know it might be worth it for once. She's almost gotten used to this negative media attention and the scrutiny surrounding her dating life. I just think I wasn't prepared for that second part of that lyric. And if they call me a slut, sure, that fits into what our expectations were for this song. I think we thought the next part would have been about a clapback saying well, this is a double standard, but then you know it might be worth it for once. I can put up with this if it means I get to be with you. I know this because I've observed it in the world, but also I know because I see the comments on my videos. People love to deny that this was a real relationship. People love to say it was either PR or was only a week. I just think we don't really have the right to determine A, whether something was real or not, or B, how deeply it could have impacted someone. If you've ever had a situationship, you know that you can feel things more deeply than a solid year-long relationship that was really stable and healthy, because you can experience so many different emotions within that. And personally, I've always felt that the people we are most impacted by are the ones that we never really even dated, because you never get to see their flaws, their weaknesses, and you can just project so much of what could have been. So I'm hoping that with this vault, she is kind of not setting the story straight, but I'm hoping people will acknowledge that art can be made from anything and anyone, and there's no need to invalidate someone's experience. So interesting that she wrote, if I'm gonna be drunk, I might as well be drunk in love. When you remember that Beyonce's Drunk in Love came out less than a year prior, so it was very fresh in the zeitgeist. The second verse on this might be my favorite. So the send the code, he's waiting there, to me gave an image of them meeting up in hotels, which we know from a lot of songs is kind of how a lot of their relationship played out.
They don't know about the night in the hotel. But if you like causing trouble up in hotel rooms.
Remember, all of the tabloids at that time were just staking out at both of their hotels, catching them sneaking in or sneaking out, middle of the night or the early morning. So send the code kind of reminded me of that, but it also made me think of Hits Different. Is that you in the hallway?
I heard your key turn in the door down the hallway.
Then there's Meet Me in the Hallway. Interesting. So, okay, these next two lines also may be the thesis statement of this whole song. The sticks and stones they threw froze mid-air. Her deep love for this person is serving as a shield for the negative media scrutiny, the hate the entire world was kind of giving her at this time. She can't see it, she can't feel it, all she cares about is being with this person. But then the next line, such a gut punch. Everyone wants him, that was my crime. Obviously, there had been a lot of haters in previous eras, but during the Red era, when she and Harry first met and began to be seen together, personally, I think the majority of the hate actually came from girls and women, especially younger girls and especially One Direction fans. Basically, for Taylor having the audacity to date someone that they deemed to be theirs or deemed to be in a relationship with one of his bandmates. And so the concept that he could date someone else that either wasn't them or wasn't Louis Tomlinson was just unacceptable. I'm so sorry to dig this out of the Tumblr archives. I think if I can show one thing that really accurately depicts One Direction fans and like young women at the time and their view of Taylor, it is Halsey's song.
Taylor was conceived, we panicked and we knew she'd hurt him, knew she was trouble, she snacks Giles. How could we allow Taylor to get him with fake smiles? Just gonna throw him in her ex-boy pile.
I don't hold any of that against her or any of the young fans because A, you're young, B, it's jealousy, like whatever. I think everyone has kind of grown up since then, but that is just to show how deep this hatred was. I mean, again, I talked about this in my era breakdown for 1989, but the hate was just so unwarranted. Her crime was literally dating someone that everyone else wanted to be with. Like, I cannot believe that. The misogyny here is just so clear because Harry did not get that hate for dating Taylor, an equally successful, impressive, beautiful person. It was only thrown at the woman. And it's very interesting to think about, given where they both are in their careers now, but at that time, I would say his fame outshone hers, or at least his likability for the general public. And again, I think the best depiction of this is that video.
Everybody get in together. Everybody get in together.
We'll be walking around the area.
Louis, take it.
Don't touch.
Harry and Taylor were out and about together on a date, bumped into some fans, and the fans basically shoved her aside to be like, move, we want a picture with Harry. It is so funny to think about that now because like I'm sure those girls went to the Eras tour and love her just as much as we all do, but at the time, it was just a very different climate.
Wrong place at the right time, and I break down, and he's pulling me in.
That part, and I break down, I always hear,
Wrong place at the right time, and I break down every time you call. This is the last time. This is the last time.
now, the bridge is very interesting.
Might as well be drunk in love, asleep, taking your time.
So half asleep, taking your time. I could be misremembering, but I believe in the 1989 era, hearing like friends of theirs say Harry was the one that kind of chased her and pursued this relationship for a really long time. But then I feel like from these lyrics, it kind of depicts that, to quote the great philosopher Jojo, you don't like me, you just like the chase. So when they actually started dating, she fell hard and fast and he was kind of pulling back. So lyrics like half asleep, taking your time. He's not rushing into this relationship, whereas she's already too far gone. The alcohol, aka this person, has already gone straight to her head. It's a big mistake. It might blow up in your pretty face. Again, like so many songs in this album, she's acknowledging this thing could end in burning flames or paradise. We might go crashing down. She knows that this might end so badly, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Also, wrong place at the right time made me think of a secret message from 1989. Who remembers it? Who did their homework? I think it was from This Love. Timing is a funny thing. My final thought on this song is just that it is sonically so 80s. And I said in one of my previous videos that for how much this album was promoted to be about like 80s synth pop, it was very pop, it was a little bit synth, but like not super 80s for me. Whereas this vault, so 1980s. I think Max Martin has more of a 90s, 2000s sound to his production, whereas obviously Jack really thrives in the 80s sound. So his impact really shines through on this. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of the comparison from these vault tracks to Midnights. Obviously Midnights is essentially all Jack and so is this vault. And so that's kind of how that happens. So as we know from the voice memo for Slut, this song essentially ended up on the cutting room floor because it was too similar to Blank Space. Thematically, obviously, not sonically. Career-wise, I honestly think she made the right choice. Not only was Blank Space obviously such a smash hit, but I think at the time the world wasn't ready to hear a song that like slandered Harry Styles essentially. But songs like this, and especially Is It Over Now, when Harry was kind of in his peak boy band fame, I feel like the public would have responded very unkindly, whereas now the public reception is a bit more mature, I guess, and understanding. And yeah, I just feel like at the time the judgment would have been so strong, whereas Blank Space, because it's so tongue-in-cheek, rather than her pointing fingers and saying this guy that I'm with is not receiving any hate but I am, there was a big conversation around Taylor like playing the victim back then, and I think they would have used this song to fuel that fire. But imagine a world where we did get Slut back then and just heard Blank Space for the first time last week. That's insane. Next up we have Say Don't Go. So this song was written with Diane Warren, and I haven't seen enough conversation around Diane and her impact in these sort of spaces yet, so I just want to run through a couple of the songs that Diane wrote and you may recognize, just to understand kind of who we're working with here. Firstly, we have Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now by Starship, If I Could Turn Back Time by Cher, How Do I Live by Leanne Rimes, and I Don't Want to Miss a Thing by Aerosmith. That is just to name a few. Diane is a musical legend. We obviously have spoken a lot about Max Martin, Shellback, Jack, obviously, but Taylor getting to work with Diane is very impressive, especially given how young she was, and the fact that Diane was in particular such an 80s legend, just incredible. And I think Taylor really thrives when she is, so Say Don't Go as a song is obviously kind of a last ditch attempt to hold on to this relationship. We see a lot of parallels to You're Losing Me, but I think ultimately it's more I'm losing you. I also wonder, had this been recorded back then, if Taylor would have used such a low register, because we see this a lot in Folklore onwards, but not so much on 1989. And it's just so beautiful.
I've known it from the very start. We're a shot in the darkest dark.
She's admitting it from right out the gate. I've known it from the very start. We're a shot in the darkest dark. I knew all along, this thing between us probably won't work. And then also, We're a Shot in the Darkest Dark, obviously, was the lyric that Taylor liked, but once this song got discarded, she then repurposed for Getaway Car.
We never had a shotgun shot in the dark.
And I love so much when we get to witness that. Things like So It Goes or Castles Crumbling, kind of a turn of phrase that she liked and wrote into something, but then it didn't really work. Oh, Casually Cruel, when like we've heard a lyric, but then we hear a vault from an earlier song and we're like, oh my God, she actually came up with that years prior, never published it, and so then reworked it into something else.
Hello, Mr. Casually Cruel. So casually cruel in the name of being honest.
That's one of the joys of hearing the vaults. Also the oh no, I'm unarmed really reminds me of in Labyrinth when she's like, uh-oh, I'm falling in love. Oh no, I'm falling in love.
Oh no, I'm unarmed. Oh no, I'm falling in love again.
It's that like scary realization, that dawning of I'm powerless, I'm so in love with this person, I don't have the control anymore. It's that sentiment that we see so much in this album, knowing that the relationship might have been doomed from the beginning, but our girl's a hopeless romantic, she's gonna fall anyway. And we talked about this in previous videos, but I love that she now feels like it's worth it no matter how it turns out.
Waiting is a sadness, fading into madness.
The waiting is a sadness. Obviously we know what she's waiting for, what she's waiting to hear, waiting for that person to express to her just how sad that feels. But to say that it's fading into madness, and in the end, in Wonderland, we both went mad.
In the end, in Wonderland, we both went mad. I'm standing on a tightrope, alone. I hold my breath a little bit longer.
When she says, I'm standing on a tightrope alone, this is not the first or last time we hear reference to a tightrope.
I'm still on that tightrope. I'm still trying everything. Lost your balance on a tightrope.
It's to show how unsteady and unstable it is, and she just doesn't feel confident in what they have. And not only is she insecure about it, she's alone. All of the balls are in his court. I hold my breath a little bit longer. She's again just like praying that this person will come through and say that he loves her and like ask her to stay. And there's also a little known reference to A Little Bit Longer, Nick Jonas's Diabetes anthem.
A little bit longer and I'll be fine.
I also find that line really interesting. Halfway out the door, but it won't close. No matter what they do, they just go round and round each time. They never go out of style. Like she can never fully walk away from this person. I think the I would stay forever if you say don't go is very similar to all you had to do was stay. But also, I wish you would.
Now I'm pacing on shaky ground.
The now I'm pacing always makes me think of
Now I'm pacing back and forth.
Homegirl loves to pace.
Strike a match, then you blow it out.
Strike a match, then you blow it out. It's like he's actively working against her. Like, you know when you have a fire that you're either trying to build, like trying to get it to catch light, or trying to stoke it and keep it alive, and he's just the wind blowing it out. He's like, nah, I don't care. I'm not gonna contribute. I'm not gonna help keep this thing alive. I'm rejecting that. But at the same time, she's not able to leave because he keeps drawing her in. Like, you kiss me and it stops time. She keeps trying to keep this love going, to tend to it. She's feeling that spark still, and he's just going, tss, putting it out.
Kiss me and it stops time. And I'm yours, but you're not mine.
Oh, that line is so heartbreaking. I'm yours, but you're not mine. I feel like that just reminds me of being a kid and like having a friend knowing that they're my best friend, but I'm not their best friend. Oh, that might be our thesis statement for this song. I'm yours, but you're not mine. Like, I have all of this love for you in my heart. If it were up to me, we'd be together, but I don't think it's the same for you. Standing on the sidewalk alone. What a contrast to You Kiss on Sidewalks. Oh, I wait for you to drive by. Every single reference on this album to him driving past her house. Like, he had always done that, now she's expecting it, and I think he's stopped. This song also does one of my favorite things, which is when like the echo comes first. It's just so satisfying to me because obviously usually that is like the echo that follows. I love this. I'm trying to see the cards that you won't show. Again, that metaphor, I said before, like the balls are in his court, but more accurately, it's like he's holding the cards here. He has the power. And to then follow that up with I'm about to fold. In poker or maybe other games, but like to fold is essentially to surrender, to say like, I'm done. I'm out of this game. She's almost ready to give up on him unless he can say those 3 words. Obviously there, the silence in I said I love you, you say nothing back represents the silence that she heard when she said it and he didn't say it back. I love when Taylor does that, and it really does remind me of in You're Losing Me when it's like the heartbeat and then it stops. This song kind of also mirrors, you know, there's many different ways that you can kill the one you love. The slowest way is never loving them enough. Has she ever written a more painful lyric in history?
But you won't.
I would really love to know when these songs were written because she's saying like, I would stay forever if you say don't go, but you won't. You're not saying I love you. You're not asking me to stay. When we compare that to songs like All You Had to Do Was Stay, when she says, people like you always want back the love they pushed aside. People like me are gone forever when you say goodbye. Like, did he finally come back and say it? I think he did. Okay, next up we have one of my personal favorite songs, Now That We Don't Talk.
Now That We Don't Talk is one of my favorite songs that was left behind. It was so hard to leave it behind, but I think we wrote it a little bit towards the end of the process and we couldn't get the production right at the time. But we had tons of time to perfect the production this time and figure out what we wanted the song to sound like. And I just think I think it's the shortest song I've ever had, but I think it packs a punch. I think it really goes in. For the short amount of time we have, I think it makes its point.
Oh, this has one of my favorite verse drop into bridges ever. And I have to say, it's so much nicer listening to this song now that they do talk, because as a fan of both people in this relationship, back then I really just would have wanted to like parent trap them to like be friends and work it out and hash it out. And so now seeing that, you know, they are on such good terms and have publicly spoken so highly and kindly of one another, this is a lot easier for me to digest.
Felt like the Red Sea, don't even get me started. Did you get anxious though? On the way home.
I love the line about did you get anxious though, because I read it as like, did you get anxious though on the way home? I don't think she wrote it to be condescending, but I kind of read it like that. Like, oh, you're this big hot shot that like parts the Red Sea at parties. You're so magnetic. Everyone loves you, but I know how you really are. I know that parting of the Red Sea is like a biblical reference, right? Moses? God, I have no idea. It's also a fun little kind of accidental metaphor for when he came into her life. Like the heartbreak of the Red era, the tears, the Red Sea, like the sorrow from that time. He came along and parted that. He was kind of healing her broken heart after Red. I just think that's so cute. Whatever you do, don't listen to Now That We Don't Talk and think about your ex-best friend. It hits so much harder than a relationship, I swear. Especially the lines about, I called my mum, she said it was for the best. Your mum always knows when you have a friend that is not really a good friend. They can always tell. Sometimes they'll tell you, sometimes they'll keep it to themselves, but they always know.
You grew your hair long.
The audacity of her to write, you grew your hair long, and make me listen to that. That's a lot. Now, I saw a lot of discussion saying that You Got New Icons was a reference to him changing his like profile picture. Like, I think they used to be called icons. I personally did not interpret it that way at all. I saw it more as like icons being like iconic people, the people that you idolize. I mean, like, we know who this song is about. I think we can very much see a shift in his sort of style over time. Like, I mean, people talk about like the Mick Jagger influence, things like that. To me, You Got New Icons kind of flows into, and from the outside, it looks like you're trying lives on. Especially if I don't know if being in in the band impacted him in this way. Maybe they had strict regulations on how he could dress, sonically what kind of music they were allowed to write, restrictions on one's expression. So naturally, as he was coming to the close of that, I just had to think about when One Direction went on hiatus, like for timeline purposes, and that hurt me so much. I don't want to ever do that again. Yeah, to me, It Looks Like You're Trying Lives On is kind of just like about him trying to find his style. And you know what, personally, I think that's very much allowed. If someone wants to go from wearing 1950s housewife dresses to crop tops and skirts the next summer, fine by me. So we should let the men do the same thing.
I'm just the old ways, you didn't have to change.
This drop right here, it's everything to me. If there's one thing about Taylor Swift, she's gonna call her mom. And while we're speaking about Andrea Swift, this feels like a good time to put this right here, just because I like to look at it. This song to me is just so girlhood, like reflecting on that agonizing feeling of having a reminder of someone, or like an inside joke you had, a reference that the two of you shared, but not being able to bring it up with them because you don't talk anymore. To me, that is just such a friendship breakup thing. Remind myself, the more I gave, you'd want me less. In a relationship, the more that you reveal yourself and like peel back those onion ogre layers, they should want you more. They should love to get to know that real you. But by the sound of things, it was like I said earlier, you don't like me, you just like the chase. So in revealing more of her true self, she felt less wanted, less cool. That line of "I pay the price of what I lost and what it cost" reminds me of, is it Maroon? The rubies that I gave up.
You no matter what, the rubies that I gave up.
And the fact that she's saying the rubies that I gave up, price of what I lost, what it cost, aka I broke my own heart because you were too polite to do it. She knew she deserved better, or like someone that loved her as much as she loved them, so she had to cut the cord.
I don't have to pretend I like acid rock.
Can we acknowledge how funny it is that this song has like a cowbell? Is that what that sound is? Now that we don't talk, I don't have to pretend that I like acid rock. Acid rock obviously being a genre of music, one that Harry Styles very much enjoys, has influenced a lot of his sound. I would love to hear in the comments, as we've seen on TikTok, people sharing what they no longer have to pretend they like for a relationship. Now these next two lines, incredibly important, and I haven't heard enough people speaking about this, so I'll be the one to do it.
I like to be on a mega yacht. Important men who think important thoughts.
Okay, or that I'd like to be on a mega yacht. What can I say? Harry Styles loves a yacht. But for me, I think this is referencing one very particular mega yacht. We know this relationship broke down whilst they were holidaying in the British Virgin Islands. This was kind of the last time they were photographed together, until recent years obviously. But they were not the only people in these islands at the time. Right after Taylor left in her blue dress on a boat, Harry was pictured hanging out with Richard Branson, an important man who likes to think important thoughts. To me, that's such a interesting callback to that time. Again, it feels like another foreshadowing to the man, like lyrically and the music video. But I think that was something that he valued. Like, we know he loves a boat. Who doesn't? Personally, I would love to be on a mega yacht with important men who think important thoughts. You know when a man is telling you something and it's something so obvious that you've known for so long? Like, I have this experience so much with not men telling me specifically, but like male hosted podcasts that think they are having this revolutionary breakthrough idea. And I'm like, yeah, my girlfriends and I discussed that when we were like 15. Why is everyone acting like these men came up with this incredible new concept? And so to me, I just like feel like that's what she was probably thinking at the time, like having to hear these thoughts and be like, yeah, really interesting, cool stuff. And then she was free of having to act like that. So the only way back to my dignity was to turn into a shrouded mystery, just like I had been when you were chasing me. We know from, was it this song or the one before? I'm too deep into it now. But we know from these lyrics, the more she gave, the less he wanted. He liked the idea of her, he liked what she represented, but maybe didn't really love her. Which is so interesting because she kind of did turn into a shrouded mystery. Like after this era comes the Reputation era. No one physically saw her for a year. That's crazy foreshadowing. And of course, my favorite thing about this song is the way it just ends so abruptly, mirroring their relationship. Incredible. Okay, next up we have Suburban Legends, aka Mastermind 2.0. Suburban Legends is the most intriguing song to me. Firstly, I love the way that it starts right out the gate.
You had people who called you on unmarked numbers in my peripheral vision. vision.
Those first two lines already tell us so much. I had people who called you on unmarked numbers in my peripheral vision. Essentially, he was hiding something. This can kind of be interpreted two ways in my mind. You know, this could be a side chick, a girl that he doesn't want to save so that he can keep it a secret. But unmarked numbers, look, I'll get to my theory on that. Also represent like important people, security. Like this is someone that could be equally a high status, important person that needs to be protected. A Kennedy maybe. That could be a reach. I know all 5 songs are most likely about the same person, but as we go through this song, I just want you to keep in mind the potential for that idea. The fact that it was in her peripheral vision obviously means like he was keeping it a secret. He wasn't showing her. It was something that she could only observe like sneakily out the corner of her eye.
Let it slide like a hose on a slippery plastic summer.
The most interesting lyric. I let it slide like a hose on a slippery plastic summer. And that lyric being so strange, such an interesting choice of words, really made me think of like the slip and slide that she had over the 4th of July. And I was wondering if it was a reference to like the lake toys that she rode on with like the Kennedys and all the cousins, because it feels too specific to be random. I let it slide like a hose on a slippery plastic summer.
I let it slide like a hose on a slippery plastic summer.
It also grammatically is so interesting to me. I let it slide like a hose on a slippery plastic summer. Like, isn't it the slide that's plastic? You were so magnetic, it was almost obnoxious.
You were so magnetic, it was almost obnoxious. Flush with the currency of cool.
This is where we get into like gold rush, gorgeous territory. You were so magnetic, it was almost obnoxious. Flush with the currency of cool. And then like contrastingly, when it comes to being cool, she's broke. She's got none of that. No, either of the relationships or men in mind could work for this. Obviously both could be seen as magnetic. Flush with the currency of cool. Either if you're Harry Styles or you're a Kennedy, like both pretty high status relationships to be in.
We broke the status quo, then we broke each other's hearts.
In the past, I know I've thought, you know, potentially Gold Rush could have been about Harry because it just fits so perfectly. And then I thought that must have been a crazy idea. But then we saw the Satellite music video, like Gold Rush and Eagle, like her Eagles t-shirt, like the team that she's gone for her whole life. I don't know, man. Gold Rush seems very specific to put in that music video. And like I said in my reaction, they go round and round each time. He goes round and round. Satellite. Anyway.
And you kiss me in a way that's consuming me.
If anyone needed proof that this were written back then, if Taylor had written these songs recently, she would have said, and you kiss me in a way that's gonna fuck me up forever. So I want to talk about the second verse of this song because it is so interesting to me.
I had the fantasy that maybe our mismatched star signs would surprise the whole school.
So mismatched star signs, that caught me by surprise because Aquarius and Sagittarius are known to be compatible. So I was like, I don't know if does that mean that they're mismatched because like they actually work well together. It could be referring to like they aren't the same star sign compared to the relationship that inspired a lot of Red. They were both Sagittarius, twin fire signs. But alternatively, she could be referring to Sagittarius and Leo, which are not said to be as compatible. I also saw a theory, someone said that like star signs could be about like them both being stars, and they had quite contrasting images, which is also a really interesting take on that.
I ended up back at a class reunion, walking in with you.
I had the fantasy that maybe our mismatched star signs would surprise the whole school. So Hollywood is often compared to a high school, or it's like used as an allegory for high school. Taylor herself has done this in songs like Miss Americana. So through that lens, she could be saying like, I had this fantasy that like us being together would be this iconic, legendary combination for like the world to witness. Because maybe on paper people wouldn't expect this, but we're both such like stars in our own right that combined this would surprise the whole school. The whole school being like Hollywood or even middle America. Now class reunion, you can look at that literally because, you know, I'm standing in a 1950s gymnasium. Apparently Americans have their high school reunions like in the school gym. The school was built in the 1950s and that's kind of all that means. But a high school reunion in a sense could also be a metaphor for public Hollywood events like the Grammys, the VMAs, these instances now where we do see them reunited, and the idea of them like walking in together, how that might have felt to her. I think especially because Taylor hadn't really had a super long-term relationship at this time. This was before Adam. So maybe in her mind it was like a fan fantasy that they would be together and like walk into these events together and how that would make her feel. She's turning out her empty pockets when he's flush with the currency of cool. So like that would kind of rub off on her a little bit. That would give her a little bit more of a cool factor in everyone else's eyes.
With the pages ripped out.
I'm wondering if you'd be more than a chapter in my old diaries with the pages ripped out is referring to like previous relationships, and she's saying you could be more than that. You could be more than just a fling that I don't end up with. You and I could really go the distance and like I won't have to rip our pages out. Again, it is so fun to think about this song now when they have reunited at these events. Also, someone let me know that the first ever Grammys were held in the 1950s. Again, a little bit of foreshadowing that they did reunite at the Grammys. Also, we were born to be suburban legends. It's just like, look at the two of us, you and me, like middle America loves both of us. So us together, that's just iconic. But again, if this were written recently, she would have said, and you kiss me in a way that's gonna fuck me up forever. I also love that she says, I know that you still remember we were born to be national treasures, because that's kind of a sentiment we see in songs like Out of the Woods. Now, I know in my reaction I made a Hunger Games Catching Fire reference, but it has just dawned on me that there are probably people watching this or hearing this album that are too young to know TikTok by Kesha. If that is you, please do your research. What an icon. I paced down your block. Again, she's pacing. And then I broke my own heart because you were too polite to do it. Which interestingly enough connects to Coney Island, but you were too polite to leave me.
I pushed you to the edge, but you were too polite to leave me.
So I feel like the main takeaway here from this relationship is that like he was never all the way in it, but he was also never all the way out. He wasn't forthcoming enough with his feelings to say like I love you, but he also couldn't say, hey, maybe we should just be friends. She was the one that had to step back and make that call. You don't knock anymore and my whole life's ruined. The waves crash on the shore, I dash to the door is interesting because it's like, obviously this is like beach imagery, and besides the Virgin British Islands, I don't know if she and Harry ever were like in a beachy environment, unless yeah, we're thinking about like the place where their relationship ended. Whereas waves crash on the shore, like in Hyannis Port, but I think that she was the one that ended that relationship. So to say I dash to the door, but you don't knock anymore and my whole life's ruined doesn't really fit the Kennedy timeline. TikTok on the clock, I paced down your block. Now we know that Harry did in fact buy property near Taylor, so like it makes sense that she could just like walk around there. But also you don't knock anymore. Interesting, because before he had the code and now he doesn't even knock. Is that your key in the door? Is it okay? Is it you? Or have they come to take me away? The ending of this song is just that sentiment we see all over this album. I always knew it, that my life would be ruined. I mean, who can blame her? You can't just date Harry Styles and then like recover from that. I would simply never get over it either. And on that note, we have our final and my favorite Bolt song, Is It Over Now?
Is It Over Now was a song I wanted to end the album because I think it's a kind of funny play on words of like, is the album over now? And I always saw this song as sort of a sister to Out of the Woods and I Wish You Would. I kind of saw those songs as similar. So unfortunately, when we were making these decisions on what to put on 1989, what to leave behind, I had to make some tough choices. And now that doesn't matter anymore because you guys are going to hear all the songs. So I am so happy about this one being out. I really love the let's fast forward to 300 takeout coffees later. That section just, I feel like headbanging to every time it comes on. Hope you agree.
When Taylor Swift wrote Is It Over Now, she walked into the Disney Channel office and she sat down with the president of Disney Channel and she said, I want to make history. And that's what this is. Now, I truly believe that Taylor could not have released this song in 2014 without changing the entire narrative of this album and thus the public's response to it. Like I said earlier, by keeping the reflections of these relationships more vague and more positive than she did on previous albums, I think that really allowed that carefree cool girl transformation, which is funny because secretly deep down we knew it's Taylor. She's gonna feel things. Oh, don't you just feel like you're floating in space hearing this intro? I think I said the same thing the first time I heard Satellite. Interesting.
With the wilt of the rose.
Such interesting opening lyrics. Once the flight had flown. So the things that come to mind for me were like, firstly, obviously the paper airplane necklace that kind of represented their whole relationship, like from beginning to end. The beginning being when Harry gave her his like famous iconic paper airplane necklace, Taylor started wearing it, to the end being in the Out of the Woods music video when she pulls it off and throws it over the cliff. But also, once the flight had flown. Does anyone remember the name of that boat? But then with the wilt of the rose makes me think of when the flowers that we'd grown together died of thirst.
The flowers that we'd grown together died of thirst.
Didn't we have a rose reference earlier on this album? Yes, in Slut. This drop. So much to say about this one line. Obviously in my reaction, you see me trying to do the girl math in my head. If she's having 300 coffees alone, 1 per day, 300 days, roughly 10 months. 10 months sober.
10 months sober, I must admit.
Not only does this link, is it over now, to clean, but in my mind it also links to Slut, where we first saw her using alcohol as like a metaphor for love. She's trying to get clean. She's 10 months sober. She's replacing the alcohol, aka his love, with coffee. Again, I would love to know the timeline of these songs because something I've always found so interesting is the fact that Taylor wrote Style after she wrote Clean. So she wrote this whole song about being free of this person. Now that I'm clean, I'm never gonna risk it. And then she writes a song where she's like, you know, we all have that one person that just might interrupt your wedding. So while I do think the tracks are in a chronological order, both on the album and in the vault, it's not necessarily the order that she felt or wrote them.
I see your profile and your smile on unsuspecting waiters.
Now again, this is a lyric that I've seen people interpret in a very different way to me. So I see your profile and your smile on unsuspecting waiters. I've seen people say profile in regards to like MySpace, Facebook profiles. To me, I just only saw that as face, you know, similar to in Holy Ground, and I see your face in every crowd.
And I see your face in every crowd.
And I see your profile and your smile on unsuspecting waiters. Definitely to me calls back to The One. I thought I saw you at the bus stop. I didn't though.
I thought I saw you at the bus stop. I didn't though.
And that becomes even more interesting once you remember that the bus stop is a cafe in the West Village where Taylor was living. I see your profile. She's saying, I keep thinking that I'm seeing you everywhere. It's death by 1,000 cuts. So I'm seeing your face everywhere. You're dreaming of my mouth before it called you a lying traitor. That line again says so much. We know that Harry texted Taylor to give like a heads up when those photos of him kissing Emma Osterley leaked while they were still dating. So the fact that she says, you dream of my mouth before it called you a lying traitor, she's like, I know you had something good and you fucked it up.
You search in every maiden's bed for something greater, baby.
You search in every maiden's bed for something greater. So I had someone ask me, why does she change it from maiden to model? To me, it's kind of a literary device that just emphasizes that change. So that second one is like more obvious when you hear it. Maiden just kind of means like girl, woman, typically like younger. But then by saying model, she's like niching down. She's specifying. She said, actually, it's not just girls that you're dating to try and get over me. It's models. And again, I said this in my reaction, but One Direction has a song called Something Great that Harry wrote with Gary Lightbody of Snow Patrol, who also is in the Taylor Swift cinematic universe. I think her use of something greater is very deliberate there because otherwise she would have had the alliteration of you search in every maiden's bed for something better, baby. And I love the confidence here of saying like, not only are you trying to get over me, but like you're having to use models to do it and they still can't compete with me. It's kind of a call out, like not really, because he's allowed to date hot girls, but like when you look at his track record, it is funny that he has a type. And I think at this point she was definitely over the slut shaming, obviously, to write this. Good for you, girl. Good for you, girl. You got on the show.
Good for you, girl. You got on the show.
Okay, we do need to talk about Baby, was it over when she lay down on your couch? Obviously we have a couch reference in Out of the Woods.
We were lying on your couch. I remember.
So to me, this is kind of similar to Olivia Rodrigo's song Deja Vu. She's like, oh, now you're doing that same thing you did with me with other girls. Rather than saying like when she lay down in your bed, anything else, she was very specific to write on your couch. We were lying on your couch. She lay down on your couch. He's doing his same old shit with someone new. I also love this. This is something she does. Come here, I whisper in your ear, in your dream as you passed out. This is very similar to Wildest Dreams. It's like, I know you'll remember me. She's saying, I know I'm not the only one that still reminisces and thinks about this relationship. I bet you think about me. Oh my god, the way this verse just came out of nowhere and killed me.
When you lost control, red blood, white snow, blue dress on a bow.
So in case you live under a rock or didn't see my previous breakdown videos, when you lost control, red blood, white snow. This is referring to the same incident we see referenced in Out of the Woods. Remember when you hit the brakes too soon, 20 stitches in the hospital room.
Remember when you hit the brakes too soon, 20 stitches in a hospital room.
When they were in Park City, Utah, they were on the snowmobile, he hit the brakes, had an accident, and cut open his chin. And I've always found that to be an interesting like metaphor, whether intentional or not, but he was the one hitting the brakes on their relationship as well. He's kind of the reason that it ended sooner than it should have. And then we have blue dress on a boat, which again is of course that terribly sad photo of Taylor all alone on that tiny little boat leaving the British Virgin Islands. And I really wonder like if this song was written before or after that photo was published and like really widely known about, because it's possible she wrote about that when it only existed as a memory before it became like a meme. Then it became a memery. But if you were wondering why I was so gobsmacked in my reaction, that is why.
Your new girl is my clone.
Again, I love that little call out. It's not saying anything too harsh, I guess, but she's just saying, hey, that new girl looks a lot like me. Are you trying to get over me by someone that looks just like me?
Woke up the girl who looked just like you. I almost said your name.
Just a cute little subtle call out to Harry. And you think I didn't see you? There were flashing lights. This could have so many different meanings, but the first thing that came to mind to me was Wonderland. Literally the opening line.
Flashing lights and we took a wrong turn and we...
You think I didn't see you? There were flashing lights. At least I had the decency to keep my nights out of sight. My interpretation of that is that the flashing lights in both of these songs refer to paparazzi.
And if you like cameras flashing every time we go out, and baby we're perfect.
And this could be talking about that situation with Emma Osterley where he was caught by paparazzi. He was seen because of them. You think I didn't see you? There were flashing lights. There were people taking photos of you. At least I had the decency to keep my nights out of sight. So like if she had moved on with someone new, she was doing like the kind thing and not parading it around, whereas he maybe was. That line killed me. Only rumors about my hips and thighs and my whispered sighs, oh lord. Now I got a lot of messages from people saying they interpret that line, only rumors about my hips and thighs, to be in relation to like her eating disorder. I personally completely disagree for a couple of reasons. We know when this song was written, and I personally don't think there was much discussion on Taylor's weight prior to the Reputation era. I think when she was still quite underweight and like going through what we know she was going through because of Miss Americana, that was kind of just seen as the normal body type for women. That was like the expectation.
I thought that I was just like supposed to feel like I was gonna pass out at the end of a show. We're in the middle of it. I'm a size 6 instead of a size 00. That wasn't how my body was supposed to be. I just didn't really understand that at the time. I really don't think I knew it.
So I don't think that those were the rumors. I think only rumors about my hips and thighs and my whispered sighs is about sex. Like only rumors about my hips and thighs and my whispered sighs. She's mirroring what she said on Slut when she said, I'll pay the price, you won't. People are talking about her hips and thighs, like what are her hips and thighs doing, and my whispered sighs. Oh lord. To me, that's very much about her sex life, the speculation around who she was dating, who she was sleeping with, and what was going on in her life at the time. Also, can we just talk about how good she sounds there? Then we have, I think about jumping off a very tall something just to see you come running and say the one thing I've been wanting. But no. Obviously in my reaction, I talked about how this reminded me of a lot of the scenes in Twilight New Moon where Bella is like acting out and what do they call it? Like risk-taking, reckless. She's doing reckless behaviors, reckless activities, putting herself in danger essentially to see if like Edward will come back and say, hey, stop, I love you, like I want to be together.
I think about jumping off a very tall something just to see you come running and say the one thing I've been wanting, but no.
So while yes, it perfectly mirrors that, it also, once again, takes me back to the Out of the Woods music video where she's standing on that cliff and throws the necklace off. And God, it also reminds me of stood on the cliffside screaming, give me a reason.
Stood on the cliffside screaming, give me a reason.
unfortunately, I feel like this is kind of a common feeling. Like if you've drifted apart with someone, had a breakup, they're not in your life anymore, or even someone you just have a crush on and you're like, I would love to know, sounds morbid, but like if I died, who would come to my funeral? Who would have been like, I wish I told her how I felt? And this is kind of like a more dark way of saying that. Like it's the notion that the only way he would finally come through for their relationship is if she was gravely injured. The notion that either Taylor or Harry were going on blind dates is so interesting to me, because a blind date is when you don't know anything about the other person, right? Like your friends set you up. Imagine going on a blind date and arriving and it's Harry Styles or it's Taylor Swift. I don't think that was happening so literally, but I think it's a perfect way to show the passing of time. Them both trying to get over each other, trying to find new people. Then we have arguably the greatest line of this song. Oh my god. You're dating models to try and replace me. If she's got blue eyes and she looks like me, I know you'll probably try to date her.
Same lips red, same eyes blue.
The way she sings the no gives me life. Her saying you search in every model's bed for something greater, baby, it's once again giving Wonderland. You search the world for what we had.
You search the world for something else to make you feel like what we had.
You're gonna try and replace me, but it's not gonna work. Or even on Question, does it feel like everything's just second best since that meteor strike? The meteor strike being our relationship. The entire bridge of Out of the Woods fits in this instrumental part. The way she says, but no, reminds me so much of in, I want to say Question, when she's like, it's just a question. Well guys, there you have it. Those are my thoughts on our 5 incredible vault tracks. Obviously, I wish we had a 6th. Sweeter Than Fiction is essentially the same. It's just been upgraded, but we already know and love her. Let me know how you feel about this new testament of our pop Bible. To me, these are perfect. I hope I was able to shed some light on different parts of these songs, or maybe provide a different interpretation. If you have any different like readings on these lyrics, please leave them below. I would love to hear what you guys think. One of my favorite things is hearing how other people interpret the songs, what you guys think they mean. So let me know in the comments. Like I said, I have a very fun video coming up next, so make sure you are subscribed if you haven't already. If you would like to do me a favor and give this video a thumbs up, that helps me so much. But besides that, I love you guys and I will see you next time. Bye!
Is this what it feels like to grow up?